a live stream based on outreach that I made to the National Football League to check on some information because it has been all over the web that the National Football League, how does it basically go? Um, well, the league is said to be considering uh, a using Allegiant Stadium for other NFL teams, and I reported that I thought that was a good idea, right? But I saw this on Twitter again and again and again and again and again, and I thought, you know what? I need to reach out and find out where this came from because, and then check with the league to see if this. Uh, hold on a second, folks. I'll be right back. Okay, folks, I'm back. At any rate, the whole news was all over, and this is how it went down. What happened was that Vinny Bonsignore, who worked with the LA Daily News, then got hired by the Raiders, but puts his stuff, he's paid by the Raiders, but puts his stuff to the Las Vegas Review Journal. So he's paid by the Raiders. I don't know if it's in whole or in part, but whatever, he's paid by the Raiders. And he puts out, information like then. So what happens is that it got passed around and wound up on Twitter. And then it wound up on 24/7 Sports. But it really came from, and I think the Pro Football Talk really has it, has the smoking gun, if you will. I think that's the best way to put it, right? Smoking gun. And it explains, it says, well, as you can read there, as the headline, could Las Vegas host both LA teams, right? Now, that's different from tweets that say that under Allegiant Stadium, okay, that say, hey, it will. In other words, the NFL is looking into, as one tweet reported, the using Allegiant Stadium, right, for the for other teams, and that was bounced around on Twitter, and I thought, I think it's about time to really check this out, because it's all over the place, and no one actually did any digging to confirm that news, right? They just sort of let it lay, and then other people pass it around, and then quoted it without even knowing whether or not what they were quoting had any real legs. In other words, it was really gonna happen. That's something that people actually trying to make happen. It's really sad, and it's another example of how fake news spreads. It really is. So you get stuff like this that I'm reading. It says Chargers. I'll put this: Chargers could share Allegiant Stadium with the Raiders in 2020. All right, but what happened was it all started when Vinny Bonsignore put out this Review Journal piece, and then Florio picked it up, and so then the fake news trade started. So he then goes on to say, because what happens when you click on the Review Journal, they have one paragraph and they ask you to buy a subscription. I don't have a subscription to them. And so Florio goes on this thing and says, as it turns out, Las Vegas could also potentially absorb the Rams too. Now, we don't know that, okay? And he says, Bonsignore of the Las Vegas Review Journal addressed the possibility. A Raiders official declined to comment to Bonsignore on the possibility, which is understandable given the NFL's recent edict to avoid discussing hypotheticals regarding the 2020 season. He says Rams CEO Kevin Dimoff, our sole focus is on playing at SoFi Stadium, hopefully in front of our fans. And then it goes on to, construct this hypothetical. If both the Rams and the Chargers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'd gotten pretty much tired of this stuff. And I reached out to my friend Brian McCarthy at the league and asked him directly. And Brian gave me a very simple answer, which went like this. I haven't heard that. Okay. I've known Brian for a long time now. But when Brian writes, I haven't heard that, it means chances are the league isn't doing that. Because if the league were really doing it, all right, you'd have heard it. But the league isn't doing it. The league is not looking into it. This was more of a hypothetical what Florio put out, right? But then you get stuff like from the Bolt of the blue, Bolt from the Blue, on Twitter, and see, people don't check out tweets. I do. Okay, this, unless they're quotes from somebody who actually has a Twitter account, it reads, Chargers could share Allegiant Stadium with the Raiders in 2020. All right. Well, could they? I mean, there's a lot of considerations that have to be put into play. For example, among them, can you handle the sponsorship issues and rights? You can't just plug a team in there. For example, the NFL back in 2007 wanted the Raiders to share what is now called Levi Stadium with the San Francisco 49ers, who own, well, technically they didn't own the stadium. The County of Santa Clara, through its stadium authority, owned the stadium, but I digress. At any rate, Mark Davis didn't like the seat color. They didn't have a plan to change the seats from red from black from red to black, right? Among other things. And then you have to swap out sponsors and everything else. And before that occurs, you have to come to an agreement as to sponsorship splits and everything. You can't just do it. And if there's one thing that I want everybody to keep in mind with respect to digital media, is this saying: it's easier said than done. Anybody can write anything, but just because somebody writes a thing doesn't mean it's true, and it doesn't mean it's happening. This is not happening, right? But as of right now, it's not happening. Now, could it change? Yeah, of course it could. But even in the process of considering the possibility, it would be really cool if the media types, and that includes Vinny and Mike, would be more detailed in their thinking about how that would work. Like, for example, what would the complications be with a sponsor? Or if they don't understand how to think that way, if they don't understand how to read a spreadsheet and figure out where the sponsor fits in it with respect to stadium pro forma, call me. Ask me, because I know. And that helps everybody have better knowledge and better information than what's been put out here. It's just all this garbage that flies around all the time. So, and that's precisely what it is. So if anybody raises the question, again, ask them, well, how are they going to fit the sponsorship considerations? Dude, conversation stopper, okay? And what you'll get is, oh, either I don't know, you'll get I don't know, or I will guess. I guess. All right? But the fact of the matter is, having Allegiant Stadium, and I said this the other night, and I've said this earlier this week, would be great for Las Vegas if it happened. And because California Governor Gavin Newsom had basically said there wouldn't be sports this year. And so that's where all this started. The trouble is, when Florio wrote what he wrote, he didn't explain that. And that could change. Gavin is reluctantly opening up the state slowly. But you know what? What could stop all that is if we have another uptick in the spread of the coronavirus. That could really change things. Hey, welcome to Zenny62 if you're just joining me. What I'm doing is explaining the NFL, in the form of Brian McCarthy, explained to me directly that he hadn't heard that the NFL was looking into using Allegiant Stadium for other teams. I put out a live stream earlier this week saying, hey, it could be the home for the AFC West. And I thought, you know what? Before I go even further off on this tangent, let me check with the league officially for myself and determine what the league's position is. And Brian, and again, when I asked Brian, and I quote, I asked him, is it true the NFL is looking into Las Vegas Allegiant Stadium as a potential venue for many teams, unquote. I said, just fact checking. No dog on the hunt, except that Vegas needs all the help it can get. Thanks, Zenny. And he said, I haven't heard that. There you go. He hasn't heard it. Okay. So Rocky Robin says, well, one issue is they are in the same division, and I don't think it's prepared to have two teams in the same division, same stadium. Well, hold on a second, PJ. My point is, the NFL has said they're not looking into it right now. it's not that. Here's the thing. I think it's a great idea. But what upsets me, and the reason why I'm coming off this way, is I gave the people who put this out the benefit of the doubt because, yeah, it's something I'd like to see happen. But once again, it becomes a manufactured news thing. Okay? And it's tiresome. It really is. And look, it's tiresome to the point. It's kind of like you have to chase these things down, and I didn't really have to chase it down, but it bothers me because I would like to believe it. I would like to explain that it's true, but it's not. The NFL is not looking into this. Okay. But what happens is that if a person's going to write a hypothetical, it doesn't matter if it's Vinny or Mike or anybody else, ask yourself, how would it work? In other words, how would it work from the business end? Ask me, ask Dan Rasher, ask Scott McKibben. There are people out here who have, like, for example, I formed Oakland's only Super Bowl bid. If you don't know what that means, ask first. Don't make assumptions, because a lot of people that you trust in media right now make assumptions about this stuff when in point of fact, and they say they're journalists. I'm not a journalist. I am a blogger and a vlogger, okay? And there's a reason I call myself that. I'm not hiding behind objectivity. I'm not feigning anything. If I know something, I know it. If I don't, I don't. If I think something is stupid, I'll tell you. If I think it's great, I'll tell you. If I made a mistake, I'll tell you. If I'm right, I'll tell you, okay? But I can't stand this sort of thing. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, boom, all right? Period. That's it. So, and PJ says the schedule conflicts for both teams in the NFL stadium cannot handle 3 teams, only 1 but 2 teams. They have to be in separate conferences. Well, here's the thing, though. I don't know that. All right, that is your interpretation of what the league thinks. But if the news were reported from another source and someone says, oh, yeah, this could happen, what you would do is say, okay, yeah, well, this is what they're thinking. It ain't happening. Now, let's take this an entirely other way, PJ. The only way it can happen is, first of all, yeah, there would have to be a rearrangement of schedule in terms of flights and everything else. But most important, there would have to be a rearrangement of sponsorship agreements. You see, you're thinking about the stuff that you can go online and immediately learn. But you're not stepping outside. You're not going out into the black area, the unknown area for you, and saying, okay, what else is entailed in this? Well, there's sponsors. All right. I mean, for example, if you are a sponsor for Allegiant Stadium and the Raiders, and your sponsorship is based on X number of games, X number, hold on a second, Corey, everything else, X number of eyeballs, X number of traffic. If you know that by more teams being there, your sponsorship values increase, you're going to be very happy. On the other hand, you're not going to be too happy if the Raiders come up and say, we want more money in the middle of a pandemic. All right. So there's a lot that goes, and you could turn around and say no. So there's a lot of complications there. It might sound great. And then on the other hand, sponsorship relationships that were with teams in other stadiums become affected. So there's a lot more to this than meets the eye of what you believe you know. And so let me get back to Corey Brown says, so is the story about the 49ers potentially playing in Glendale, Arizona, where the Cardinals falls too? Yes, it is. All of these are wild speculation that were not generated by the NFL. They were generated entirely by the media. Okay? So I don't know who issued the 49er version of it, but I know the Raider version came from Vinny. It was echoed by Mike Florio, and it went from there. And that's the other thing. If I put out something, they won't echo it. But maybe this is a lesson to all of you to call into question the people who have their own little echo chamber and not be so quick to advance what they say because they have a title, what you consider to be a conventional title, with a publication, as opposed to owning your own publication, or for that matter, institutional racism, where they tend to be white and established. All right. Now, I put an asterisk there because Mike Florio is of a new guard. And I have a great deal of respect for what Mike has done, because back in 2005, I believe it was, when he started Pro Football Talk, somewhere in there, maybe a little north of that, it was a blog that really was more like TMZ for the NFL, but it did have a racist tinge to it that I personally got after Mike about. And when I say personally, I don't mean to be insulting toward Florio. I like Mike a lot. That's not the case, okay? And I like Vinny a lot too. This is not personal in that way. It's not. That's not what I'm trying to point to. But Florio had one public post where he included a cartoon that was racist, and he admitted that it should not have been done. And that's when I established a great deal of respect for Mike. Okay. But the bottom line is, he was trying to be sensational at the time. He was a blogger. He wasn't a standard news guy. He's an attorney in, I believe, North Carolina, and really focused on something that wasn't around. It was a TMZ version. It was what TMZ Sports is. Florio got a head start on TMZ Sports by about a decade, okay? And he really cemented himself online. And then NBC bought his platform for a good deal of money and him, and he continued on with his work. So, I really admire what he's done. It's an example of how media should be done in the modern age. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to say, oh, cool, because of that, it's all right that, you put out something that's not there, okay? That's what I'm saying, all right? But I just want to make sure that I got all my I's dotted and T's crossed here. Let me read your comments from now. And so Corey Brown says, I heard the 49er thing on a local sports talk show in Phoenix, but they didn't know for sure. And Raiders SP says, we always need to do our own research on things, especially if it comes from media. Yep. Rocky Mountain says, I would think so, Leonard, from the owners, they would have to vote on that. I would not think they would go for it. I don't know what the owners would do. This crazy quilt situation, I think. And then Jamal says, hello, Zinni. I always miss your lives and glad you're on now. Thank you. I'll try to get on earlier more often. Leonard Sally had said earlier that PJ responded to, will there have to be a vote for this to happen in place from the owners? Yes. And PJ is absolutely right about that. Raiders SP said the NFL should look into these, but from a business standpoint, if they are allowed fans, then more money. But if the NFL will start the season with no fans, then having 3 teams in your stadium, Raiders SP doesn't come off quite right. Maybe you want to rewrite that one. And then it says, hey, Zinni, hope you're staying safe during the pandemic. We're trying, definitely are. So then we come down to Jamal says, wow, interesting. I used to read Pro Football Talk a lot. It was a good blog. Yeah. And Rocky Mountain says, would think so, Leonard. I got that one already. And I believe Raiders SP offered the last sentence there. So anyway, there's the thinking. Okay. That's the news. And I'm going to now shuffle off the Buffalo for now. I'll be back later. But I wanted to report that because I reached out to the league and got that information. And hey, everybody, stay safe and do your best to be kind to each other. This is a weird, wild, and woolly time, as they say. Okay, so we will definitely talk soon. All right, I'll see you all later. Thanks. All right, thank you.